This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Harry's, for guys like you who want a great shave experience at a fraction of what you're paying. Go to harrys.com and get $5 off your first purchase by entering the code WhatTheTech when you check out. And by IT Pro TV, an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. Visit itpro.tv/what-the-tech and use the code WTT30 for a free 7-day trial and 30% off the lifetime of your account.
What the tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarin. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Sunshine, Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
I am terrible. Thank you for asking.
Sorry I asked.
Yeah, it's one of those questions where you never actually want to know how someone is, and you finally ask them, and they end up telling you how miserable their life is. So, to add to the saga of my life over the past month, we had cleaning people come because we're doing all this construction in the house, much needed upgrades. And the cleaning people broke 2 of my cameras in the studio. They snapped the HDMI input on the inside of the camera because they decided that why, they half-assed everything in the house, but this was the room that they decided not to half-ass, and they moved all my stuff. In the process of moving the tripod with the camera, they didn't unplug the camera. They just took it and dragged it across the room, and now they snapped 2 of the HDMIs.
Now, allow me to predict some of the feedback you're going to get from this comment, from this commentary, because it will involve such things as, "Oh, it must be nice having cleaning people come to your home that you have that kind of complaint." You know, like the help.
The help.
No,
it was not
some
the help.
expensive equipment that I have.
No.
I think people maybe don't understand the chaos that you live in.
It's been terrible. We had to. I mean, it was.
It's like a multi-generational sitcom waiting to happen, and you've got another kid on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy. I want you to live in my house one day. Like, no, you know what? I think we should do this. I think you should move here for a week with your family, and it'll be a sitcom. Yeah, just experience it. We'll do a swap. I'll live in your place. But you inherit the people with this place.
Yeah.
And I'll inherit your people.
Day 2 will be your wife buys me a bathrobe.
Yeah. Guys, we do have a lot to talk about. Enough with the chit chat, says somebody.
Wow.
Enough with the chit chat.
It's been a day of a lot of critical.
Very critical, guys. We're gonna get started here. We do have a lot to talk about, obviously. I want to hear more about why you're returning your Samsung Galaxy S7. I want to talk about home automation because we haven't spoken about home automation, and I want to see how it's been going for you and how it's been going for me, and also next week's Microsoft event that it is not a Surface event, but it maybe is. We will find out next week, I guess, next Tuesday. But before we do, let's talk about our sponsor, and that's IT Pro TV. Guys, I have mentioned them quite a few times here. And, if you're looking for opportunities in the tech industry, listen, it's a extremely fast-growing job market in the tech business. There's no time like now to get started on a new career in tech or move up the ladder. I know a lot of people, I did IT for many years, but that was 10 years ago when I did IT. Things change, technology changes, and you don't have to, I guess, stay back and watch everybody run past you. This is the awesome thing. And you also don't need to go back to school. IT Pro TV is the best way to stay up to date with the current IT certifications. IT Pro TV has over 2,000 hours of content, and more than 30 hours a week of content is added, which is amazing. So if you go to their website here, you can find their plans. But here's a cool thing, okay? So they have the course library up here. They do have a free service, so go and try it out for free. Go sign up now and try it out for free. You can go to IT Pro TV, itpro.tv/what-the-tech. You could get this link on our website. And of course, maybe Suncast could post it in the chat room right now while we're doing this. They have a whole list of courses that you could sign up to. Everything from Cisco to Apple to Adobe VMware, Microsoft, technical skills, operation, project management. They have a whole list of courses here. You could either do something that you already know just to kind of refresh. You could learn ethical hacking if you want to do it, Windows Server to Photoshop to intro to JavaScript. They have everything for everybody. Also, some of the clients include places like Harvard and MIT. So you know this is no joke. They have a free package. They got multiple, 3 different packages here. They have a free basic membership that gives you access to their live feeds and several free courses. You could get started with that, or you could do a standard membership where you get access to the entire library of content, or you could do a premium membership, which includes benefits of the basic and the standard, obviously, and of course you get access to over 100 step-by-step virtual labs, which is really, and practice exams if you need to, if you're getting prepared to take a certification. You don't have to watch this on a computer. You can get it everywhere: Chromecast, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, or your PC. Great people, and a great way to keep up and learn. IT Pro TV. I want to thank IT Pro TV for supporting the show. Paul.
Yes.
You know what I wish they had? A course on how to be a cleaning person without breaking things.
Yikes.
You know, this is the topper. They broke my SIM card. I had left the SIM card on my desk, and I found it in the garbage, snapped in half.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Snapped in half. Animals. These people. They were raised by wolves, apparently. You know what was not raised by a wolf? You. And and I want to talk to you about why you're returning the S8. You love this phone. You said in your article on Thurrott.com, if you guys have not read it, a great raving review of this device. You obviously, it has its flaws, but you wrote a very nice piece about it, about how it's a gorgeous device, and it will most likely change the entire phone market on how, overall design. This is a beautiful, it is not a revolutionary device. It's an evolutionary device, but this is a matured, evolved device. The Samsung S7 is a beautiful device as well, but this was the next step from the S7, and it is a beautiful step that they've taken as far as devices go, as far as overall design goes. But you are returning it.
Yeah, and that's, it's particular to my situation. I just want to, before getting into that, I just want to address, somebody on Twitter yesterday basically accused me of planning to do this all along. That in other words, what I did was buy the phone, review it, which I haven't actually technically written a review like I would normally do, but I've written some articles about it, and then return it. Like this was always my plan, and that really bothers me because that was never my plan. And frankly, confronted by that notion, I guess the first thing that goes through my head is if I planned to do something like that, I wouldn't have told you about it.
You would have said, I'm going to return these.
I wouldn't have, kind of broadcast it.
Well, what benefit would you have from secretly,
I whatever. But I guess, people who are familiar with what I've been writing over the past couple of months understand the context in which this happened, because when Samsung announced this thing back in March, I saw it as a big deal, and I pre-ordered one immediately. To be clear, with my own money,
Sure.
This is not something my work gives me or that Samsung gave me, or I paid for it with my own money. It's expensive, and I don't have an infinite supply of money, but anyway, I saw it as a big thing, and I started thinking about how I could integrate this into my workflow and replace the Pixel, hopefully, because I've been disappointed with the Pixel. Although I'm going to write something soon, I think, that will kind of put that in perspective. But I guess long story short, I write about technology. I need to have an iPhone. Obviously, I need to have at least one Android phone. That's the world. And I saw this and thought, wow, this is, amazing. But I feel a lot of kind of guilt and almost resentment about the high cost of some electronics. And so I wrote an article back in, I don't know, maybe early April or something about that, and decided that I would also look at some lower end phones, which we've talked about over the past couple of weeks, the Moto G5 Plus, which you can get for under $200 if you want to, and also the OnePlus 3T. both of which are great phones in their own right. In fact, the OnePlus 3T is nearly perfect, and for 2/3 the price of a Galaxy S8 or whatever, that's an incredible value. But then of course, then the Samsung arrives, and it's amazing. And you mentioned that I said that I felt that this was the future, and it is.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what kind of phone you have today, the iPhone, the Samsung you have, some computing phone, whatever it is, it now looks old-fashioned because of this, and it's inescapable, especially once you've held one or seen one in person. How forward-looking this design seems. Yes, there are some problems with the Galaxy S8. The fingerprint reader is the most obvious of those. Terrible design. It's inexcusable. I have no idea why they did that. But virtually everything else about it is pretty fantastic. Some of the stuff that's fantastic about it is obvious. The design, I don't have to explain that. You see it and you're like, gee, it's just amazing. The camera quality is fantastic. Is it technically better than a Pixel XL or an iPhone or this phone you have? I don't know. In fact, I think I'm almost at the point where I kind of don't care. I think these things are all comparable. And so if the Pixel XL is the best camera you can get in a smartphone today, that's debatable, but some people believe it to be true. It's certainly excellent. This is on par. They're very similar quality-wise. It's a very, very good camera. That kind of thing does matter to me. But because of my particular situation, which could change over time, and also, a lot of other minor things, like, for example, because I bought it right away, I had to have it tied to a carrier. So I chose AT&T, which is the carrier that I thought I would be using it with. Ideally, what I would do is get an unlocked version of the phone, which was not available on day one. And then I could bring it anywhere. And so, for example, my second phone, I use Project Fi. I have to use a Google phone for Project Fi, essentially. I have a Pixel. Pixel already has an excellent camera. I travel internationally with it. That makes a lot of sense. Somebody in my comments said, well, why don't you use T-Mobile instead? They also have great international plans. That's an excellent idea. Yeah. The Galaxy S8 that I bought was an AT&T phone. It's not going to work on T-Mobile. If I had gotten an unlocked phone, that would have been an option. And maybe I will in the future. So that's kind of the tip of the iceberg for kind of the issues. But ultimately, after testing this and the other phones, I basically decided, unfortunately, it doesn't make sense for me to hold on to this thing. Also, just on the topic of money, all of the phones I have are rather expensive, and I've spent a lot of money over the years on phones. And I bought the Pixel, and I bought it using like some kind of Google 0% financing type thing when it came out, and then I paid it off. And so I actually own that phone outright right now. And that, of course, that one's completely unlocked. It will work anywhere. The iPhone, when the iPhone 6S Plus came out a year and a half ago, I started using the iPhone upgrade program to see what that was like. And I've written about that program as kind of a good deal for people who are going to be paying for a phone over 2 years anyway. So when the iPhone 7 came out, 7 months ago, whatever that was, of course, I upgraded to the 7 Plus. But the problem with that is it puts my payments out 2 more years. In other words,
so now you owe for 4 years.
Well, it's not that I owe it is, I guess. Well, technically it's 3 years, because the way that it works is your monthly payments are figured on a 2-year schedule. So I made 1 year of payments on the 6S, and then the 7 came out and I got a 7. And so now I just keep paying. I think the amount might have changed a little bit because I got a different memory amount or something. I don't remember exactly, but now I pay. I keep paying. But the problem is, once I switch phones, the 2-year time frame gets pushed out. So I've paid for 1 year, but then I reset the loan, right? And so now I'm going to pay for 2 years. But if I get an iPhone 8 or whatever they call it this coming year, I'll reset it again out to 2 years. And so what I've decided to do is, and I looked it up today, and it's horrifying, but I'm going to pay off that phone because I want to own these things outright so that I have maximum portability, in the sense that
to move it wherever you want. Yeah.
Or to go to another phone and be able to do the right thing with those phones. So if I have a Pixel that's unlocked and will work anywhere and I own it, if I have an iPhone 7 Plus that's unlocked, which it is, and it will work anywhere, which it will. Actually, that's not technically true. I guess it is. It's AT&T, but I guess it's unlocked, but it might be carrier locked.
So I have actually not necessarily with this, but I have an issue with unlocking a phone.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah,
you
sure.
have you experienced this on how
I
difficult they
have.
make it?
Yes, which is why going for purely unlocked phones is such a great
Yeah.
idea. I it's been a while. I mean, I had various Windows phones which were tied to AT&T, and I had long ago paid off a Lumia 1520, which AT&T refused to unlock. And I had gotten a new phone, and I don't remember a newer phone. I don't remember which one it was, and they unlocked that one, no questions asked. And I can't explain that. Although the law now in the United States is that they actually have to unlock it if it's not tied to a payment that you're making to
Okay.
them.
So here's a phone that my friend sent over. It's an iPhone 6 Plus. I'm giving it to my father. It's an
Yep.
AT&T phone, so I need to move it to Verizon. And when I called AT&T, they said, "Yeah, it's no problem at all. Give us the IN whatever
IMEI number.
IMEI number,
Yep.
and we'll put it through." And they put it through, and well,
They
he
said
did it
no.
the first time. He did it.
And then they
They
said no.
denied it. They said denied because it doesn't match the records that they have on file.
Okay.
Okay. So they did it again. They said, "We're so sorry. We're going to try it a different way." Okay. Denied again. It's gotten denied 4 times already. I called them today and they said, "Oh, the problem is they're doing it as an AT&T customer. And
Oh.
you can't do that. You have to do it as if you are not an AT&T customer and you just happen to get this phone from somebody." So they just checked
Well,
this
which is the case.
which is
You
the
know?
case.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've had a terrible time getting this unlocked. So this was my final attempt. I'm going to throw this at their heads if it doesn't get unlocked now. Or I'll just, I'll send it back and I'll
Sure.
get a different one somewhere else. But
Well, by the way,
it's not the easiest scenario to go through.
no, it's actually you're made to feel like you're going to them hat in hand. You know that you're
Yeah.
hoping that they'll lower themselves to your level to do this thing that you need. You might be lucky with that particular phone because I don't remember the exact time that it changed, but with either the 6S or the 7, they stopped using universal radios in the iPhone.
I think it might be
right?
the 7.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's one of the things I actually was a little iffy about when I first got it because let's say that I think the 6 and the 6S then, and maybe some of the earlier ones, but at least those two, I believe you would buy it from Apple and it didn't matter what carrier you were on, it would just work everywhere. And if you go to buy an iPhone 7, in fact, I should just go, well, actually, if you buy an iPhone 6S today, it will probably give you a carrier choice. And then you can do unlocked.
Yeah. 6S does that. Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the 7 is tied to AT&T. I could be wrong about this.
Someone in the chat room would know, probably. I'm positive. I think it is the 7. I think it is the 7. I think the 6S you could do. I think
they
it's
actually
the 7.
took a step back with the compatibility somehow. And that sounds crazy when I say it, but let me see what happens here when you buy. Like if you go to buy an iPhone 7, well, you can buy it without a carrier, SIM free. No, okay. I mean, maybe it was just because I bought it on day one or something, and I had to choose AT&T.
Why your AT&T iPhone 7 will not work on Verizon's network? Yeah, it does not work.
Does not work.
No.
Now, why would that be? But and yet you can buy a SIM free.
Okay, so here's the story. So it's Intel on the AT&T ones.
That's right.
But not on the Verizon one.
But okay, and yet, so in other words, but if I buy an unlocked SIM-free iPhone 7 from them today, what chipset do I get? And are you telling me that seriously it wouldn't work on every carrier? Really?
No, apparently it doesn't. Here's a story.
You think?
I'm reading the story. It's a CNET story. Some models of the iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus will use the Intel modem, a critical chip that handles the radio communication linked to the mobile network. The Wall Street Journal reported on Friday it does not. It's not as important as the central process of business Intel pulled. Such deals may seem obscure business, blah, 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 but that means that the Intel modems, they didn't work on the older networks like CDMA used by Verizon and Sprint. That matters if you're considering switching carriers. The iPhone for AT&T T-Mobile will not support CDMA and will not work on Sprint or Verizon, Apple warns on its website.
Okay, so by the way, I'm curious about that because I don't see that warning anywhere. Like I'm actually going through the process.
Let's see.
just to see what happens.
Well, it just took me to a dead link now, so maybe that may not be the case anymore. But this is as
That's
of.
what I'm wondering. Okay. I mean, it literally says activate with any carrier later.
Oh, okay. So maybe that is not the case then. This is September 2016.
Well, no, by the way, I just said this story and without remembering the why of it. Like I do remember this being the case.
Okay. Yeah, I do too. I do remember this being the case too. So
okay.
I don't know.
Anyway,
regardless.
I guess the point of all this story is, because I wanted to get and actually I didn't really understand it. For example, I've never bought a phone direct from Samsung. So when that phone was announced, I pre-ordered it. They did ask me which carrier I had, and I thought, well, that's a little strange, but okay. And I have to sort of assume it's locked to the carrier.
I don't think so. No.
Well, except it comes up with an AT&T logo when it boots. And I just saw the other day that they are now or will soon be selling carrier unlocked versions of the phones.
Okay, so maybe they haven't done it, but I've had that happen before too, where even though it's programmed to say Verizon, the chipset on it will pick both.
Okay. Well, so I guess the question then would be,
that's just the ROM, whatever ROM is installed.
Yeah, and I did, so I'm not going to keep it, but of course, one of the things that was going through my head was, if I do end up keeping this thing, I'm going to want to bring it to Europe. I'm not going to want to pay AT&T for international. I might want to put another SIM in it. I might want to switch it to T-Mobile. Can I do that? And then I'm thinking, could I go to AT&T like you just did with the iPhone and say, well, I want to unlock this thing? Because from AT&T's perspective, this thing's paid for, right? I brought it from the outside. They have no idea how I acquired it.
Yeah.
So they should unlock it if it's locked. Anyway, this is all kind of moot at this point because I'm not, I'm not going to keep it anyway. But this is some of the stuff that's been going through my head over the past, several days or whatever. Because I've been thinking about this stuff because, confronted by the expense of all this and, like the guy who said, you intended to do this all along. No, I didn't actually. In fact, I fully expected that what I would be doing is selling the Pixel. That, my thought was,
which that is kind of what you said to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this thing cost $850. So if it works out, I can help manage the cost of it by selling the Pixel has to be worth something in the $500 range. That would significantly cut down on the cost of the device on the spot.
I was with Ayaz on, she's probably watching. I was with Ayaz last week. We got a drink at Rattle and Hum, and I was talking to him about the Pixel, and he was telling me what a disappointment that phone was, and almost everybody that bought it, they loved it for about a minute, and then they realized what a disappointment it was because it wasn't that great.
I'm like I said,
everybody wanted it to be great.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people. I have, I wrote a review where I basically described it as an iPhone knockoff. I explained how, in my experience, the camera on the Nexus 6P was actually better, although that's a subtle distinction. The camera on the Pixel is fantastic. The performance is not great. Actually, one of the things that really surprises me about this device is, the performance stutters that you get sometimes. You would think in a flagship you'd never see anything like that. Android has a problem like Windows used to, where it kind of gets worse over time as well. And actually, my experience with the OnePlus 3T, much less expensive phone, that phone, that processor is way faster day to day. It just is. Like, there were no pauses on that thing at all than the Pixel. And so those were my kind of primary complaints. But the funny thing is, and it's weird because you see this in the Apple world a lot. But I got this with the Pixel where I would write that. I would say, this thing is lackluster for this number of reasons. And people would kind of tear me apart because they owned one of these things and they didn't see that. And I must be lying or, making it up or wrong in some way. And they'd look for some reason why I would be such an idiot about it. And, people would say, well, you use, the Microsoft launcher and not the Google Pixel launcher sometimes, and it's like, well, yeah, I do sometimes. But the reason I do that is because it's so terrible as it is out of the box. I'm trying to make it better. So I've been testing different things, but I go back and forth, in the past 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at most, I've actually gone through the horrible process of resetting this thing at a very, not through the phone software, but using like the Android developer tools which is a bunch of command line stuff. I don't know if you've ever done anything like this, but it is a horrific, daunting process involving obscure command line utilities and so forth. And it flashes the phone. You have to unlock the bootloader, and it's this crazy thing. And I did it once. I put it on the Android O beta, or the pre-beta, the developer preview, to see what that was like. And yesterday or the other day, I did it to go back to the stock, most up-to-date ROM version, whatever, the 7.1.2, whatever. And I have to say, to be fair to it, right now it's fine. But of course, I only have like 7 apps installed on it. So, Android has this way, this. I mean, it has this way of getting worse over time.
Yeah. Oh, well, listen, I've been trying to keep my criticism of Android to a minimum because people are very upset when I say, this is a problem that I've had since day one of Android. I am an Android user. I like using Android, and I'm not going away from Android. I want to be in both environments, but it's, I see all those things, and, maybe how many times I like to first blame myself, right? I like to say,
Sure.
It's me. It's something I'm running. It's something I'm doing. But it can't always be the case. That cannot be the case every time, because I barely run any apps. I mean,
I know.
It just
Here's
worse.
the thing. And by the way, you've been using an iPhone, right?
I have, yes.
Okay.
For about a month now.
Okay, so here's the way I describe this. The iPhone offers a more consistent experience across the board. The software is better in the sense that I think it looks better, but that's my opinion. It doesn't matter, but it runs better. And the way it runs better is it runs better more consistently, right? The one thing I never have on an iPhone ever, and I've owned basically all of them, is stuttering, glitchy performance where things don't work sometimes. You have to halt the app or reboot the phone or whatever. Like, that never happens on the iPhone. We can kind of complain about lack of customizing and whatever. I guess we all have those issues. But honestly, when it comes down to it, the job here is to get apps running. The apps are generally better and better looking on the iPhone. And they always perform better. They just always do. And so I'm sorry, I should say, has been that your, do you agree with that? I mean, you've been using one. So.
Listen, I've been using iOS for many, many years now, but it hasn't been my everyday phone. So I literally have 2 everyday phones that I walk around with, and I use them equally. I don't use one more than the other. And I have to tell you, the performance on my Samsung plummets after a couple months of usage.
Yeah.
And then I could do I could clear the cache, then the Delvic cache, and I could do all that nonsense, right? Yep. But that is not a proper response for an average user. That's not what the average user will think about doing or ever want to do. I don't want to get into the boot recovery and wipe it out and format it and do a clean wipe. I shouldn't have to do any of that. This thing should work. And by the way, this is a clean install from 3 months ago. So it's not like I've been running this thing for like 2 years, without doing anything. It's gotten really slow. It's gotten really bad.
So because I'm returning some phones, I attached them to the computer and I took some photos off of them. I took all the photos off them just to have them. I have them. They're up in OneDrive. They're up in Google Photos, whatever. And it was interesting because I have reset the Pixel probably 4 times, maybe 5. Twice I've done it. Well, actually probably more than twice, but let's say at least twice, using the developer tools like that thing you were describing, the awful scan and wipe thing. And I plugged the iPhone in, and the iPhone has all of the photos I took on it from day one. Like, in other words, each of these phones has only been around for a little while, and you go to the iPhone and it goes all the way back to September or whenever it came out, because nothing ever goes wrong with it. And we can have these little theological or ideological debates about Apple and Google and whatever, but sorry, that's the fact. Now, I should say, all that being said, the other thing that Samsung deserves a little bit of credit for is they've really done a lot of work to fix the problems in Android. I can't state that they have fixed that performance issue I was describing because I didn't have it long enough.
Yeah.
But if you're concerned about the inconsistencies and the weirdnesses and whatever in Android, I would say with this version of the software, the stuff that they put in the S8, they've gone a long way toward making me worry about that stuff. And Google did a pretty good job on the Pixel as well. It's funny to me that they changed Android a little bit just for Pixel. You would think they would want the clean thing to be available everywhere, but they don't really do that anymore. But the Samsung thing kind of took it to a new level, and with one exception, and that's the Bixby thing, which was terrible. I kind of agree with all of the changes they made. They did a pretty nice job of it. The OnePlus 3T as well. Those guys have a nice a nice set of themes on the phone, and those go a long way toward making it just kind of nicer to use day to day.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Listen, by the way, with all that said, I'm probably getting the S8.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I really don't. Well, the fingerprint reader is terrible, but other than that, and by the way, one thing that will help that dramatically is Samsung sells a really cheap case, which is this little glass thing, and it doesn't really add too much thickness. It's actually not even probably glass, but it gives a little better differentiation between the two holes in the back.
Yeah.
And so you want to hit the fingerprint reader, which is the smaller one. That actually makes it a little bit easier to do that, because on the stock phone, it's super shiny back there and it all feels like the same thing, and you don't know what you're touching. And then all of a sudden you realize you've been touching the camera and screwing it up, or not the camera, but the lens. So that makes a difference. But yeah, it's awesome. I mean, the phone is awesome. It's so beautiful.
So you wrote that how this phone is going to kind of change the way that we design phones.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit, because I'm curious. I agree with you absolutely. I mean, this is probably one of the most beautiful smartphones ever made. Way more practical as far as size and screen real estate than the iPhone has ever been.
Yeah. So this is a phone, right? It's my iPhone, but I don't know if I can get it not to glare. I guess I can't. So it's glary. Okay. Anyway, the point is, it has like this giant forehead on the top, and it's got this giant chin on the bottom. And it has a thin bezel on the sides, and that's a phone. That's what phones look like. Your phone looks exactly like this. Basically, it's the same shape, same dimensions, whatever. The Samsung, the new one, the Galaxy S8, gets rid of all of those things. And so on the side, the curved screen, which actually I think you do have on your phone, but the top and the bottom is the big change. And it creates. It's really interesting what they did with the form factor, because if you got rid of this, the bezels on this thing and made this whole thing the screen, this thing would be like a 6.5-inch gigantic phone, and it would be impossible to hit the top of the screen because no one's hands are that big. And even on this thing, I can't really. So it would be kind of awkward. And what Samsung did instead, and this was a little bit of a surprise to me, because you hear 6.2 inches and you think this is going to be the size of a Moto, like a Moto 6 or a Lumia 1520, like these 6-inch devices we've seen so far out in the wild. It's not. Because when they stretch the screen to that size, to that whole front of it, they also bring in the side, so it's a thinner device. And so, from a left to right, like the horizontal perspective, the width of it, that phone is more like the normal iPhone 6, but from the height, it's like the iPhone Plus, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's 18.5 by 9 is the dimensions. It's very tall. It's like an ultra, when you put it on its side, it's like an ultra wide screen kind of thing. And so when you tilt it like this, it's very tall and very thin, except that it's not actually very tall. That's what's interesting about it. In fact, I still have it. So I'm like really afraid I'm going to drop it now that I'm bringing it back. But if you put it up against the iPhone Plus, it is actually
thinner.
It's the same height.
Yeah. And here's the other thing, for people who don't know, because I did get some hands-on experience with this. If you are a previous iPhone, a Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge or an S7 Edge owner, the S8, and I'm not talking about like the bigger one, right? The bigger size. I'm talking about like the standard, not the Plus, like the standard size one. Like this would be the standard one. This is bigger than the standard size S8. It's wider. The S8 is very narrow.
Yeah.
Very narrow. So I was shocked when I saw how narrow it was.
So it's not kitschy.
It's longer and narrow.
It creates something that the form factor is, the result of it is that it's easier to hold in your hand. I have really big hands, and so for me, like an iPhone Plus makes some sense, but I still can't, I can't demonstrate it because it's kind of awkward, but there's no way for me to get my thumb up to the top of the screen. I can't do it when I'm holding it, right? My thumb kind of ends there. On this one, because of the thinness, it's actually possible. I mean, I still can't get up to that top corner, but of course in Android, you don't have to put icons up there, unlike iPhone, which is one of the nice things about Android. I kind of reserve the top of the screen to like the widget thing, right? So the extent of where my thumb's going to be is the bottom of the screen, and that's where I put the icons. I mean, it's nice that you can do that. But anyway, this thing is more easily held, if that makes sense, and it feels better when you hold it as well because of those curved edges, curved sides, I guess. It's nice. This is. I don't know what Apple's going to do exactly. Obviously, we've seen different rumors and everything, but if they don't come out with something that looks like that, I don't know. They're going to, I don't know what to say. Although, of course, they haven't had wireless charging ever. They've avoided various things for many years. So who knows? But they need to respond to this, and everyone's going to come out with phones that look like this. Everyone.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? They are going to respond. We've seen what the iPhone 8 will look like, and it seems like they're kind of responding, and this is the direction that they're going to go in.
Right now, I am looking at these two phones, and the Galaxy S8 is like a million times better looking. And I mean, the iPhone is a handsome device. It's an established design. We've all seen it. You know exactly what it looks like. There's nothing wrong with it. There are things I like about it. Like the haptic based kind of home button thing, I actually think is really awesome on the 7.
See, I have a question for you about Android and Microsoft, which I'm going to talk about now. But we do need to take a little break and talk about our sponsor. If I could do that here. There we go. Nope. Doesn't want me to do it. Nope. This is a new problem now that we have here.
What's that?
My buttons no longer work, but that's fine. But I do want to take a moment and talk about our sponsor, and that's Harry's. I have been talking about Harry's for years. I use a Harry's razor every day when I shave. I do shave, guys. I have a beard, but I do shave. I clean it up, and I've been using the same type of razor for the last, I want to say, since I started shaving. So when I was like 4, when I started shaving, Paul. I've been using the same thing, and my friend told me to buy these. They're very thin, right? They're like a thin blade, and you can kind of clean it up. It's not. My skin is very sensitive. I can't use those Mach 55 razors that exist out there. So I've been using the same type of razor for years, and the problem with these razors is that it's 2 or 3 companies that control all the razors in the world, essentially, the where they're manufactured, and the pricing has shot up and the quality has plummeted down. And Jeff and Andy, the 2 guys that started Harry's, got fed up with getting ripped off, and they started Harry's to save shaving, to fix it, essentially. Harry's is known for their quality, so they bought their own blade factory, so they control it from beginning to end, and they take less profit, but by taking less profit and selling directly over the internet, Harry's has been able to offer these blades for half the price, just $2 a blade compared to $4 a blade that you buy at the drugstore. Also, it's not a great experience when it's locked up in a cage and you got to, call someone to get it. You want to be in and out. Here's the great thing about Harry's. You could try it for free. Harry's is so confident you're going to love their blades that they're going to give it away with a trial set for free. All you got to do is cover the shipping of $3. With the trial set, you get the razor handle, which is weighted. It feels great to use. The 5 precision engineered blade, the shaving gel, and the travel blade cover. It's a value of $13, and it's yours for absolutely free. Just pay the shipping. Just cover the shipping. You're going to love this so much. You're going to sign up, and you're going to get this every month. Go to harrys.com/whatthetech. You can go sign up there and start with your free trial. Listen, holidays are coming, right? Father's Day is coming. I'm not supposed to talk about this yet because we're in the wrong month. But Father's Day is coming. It's going to be around the corner. Go and order a Harry's razor. I ordered it for my dad, and he absolutely loves it. And my father's one of these guys. My father will say, "This is." I don't know if they'll be happy with this read, but I bought my father this very expensive shaving set a couple years ago. Very expensive. 'Cause my father, he has this thick beard, and he always shaves, and he shaves like every day. He's like a military guy, so he has to shave every single day. I bought him this very expensive set, and my father turned to me and said, "This is a piece of crap. Go return it." So I was apprehensive when I handed him this Harry set that I had bought, but I gave it to him anyway, and I was expecting him to complain. He said it was one of the best shaves he's ever had. So Freddie said it was the best, therefore it is. Harrys.com/whatthetech. I want to thank them for supporting the show. Paul.
Yes.
Before I forget, any updates on next week's event? Actually, Tuesday's event, which you were going to be here on Monday. We're going to have a meetup here at Rattle and Hum, I believe, at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with Rattle and Hum, to be clear, we mean Rattle and Hum East.
Yes, Rattle and Hum East. It's on 33rd and 5th.
All right. Yeah, don't go to Rattle and Hum West, which is over by Times Square, I guess, a little bit.
I don't care for that location, to be honest.
I like the place, the location.
I like the place. I don't like the girls. The girls at East are way better.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
I actually ordered Jackie a Matt Men t-shirt. She wanted a Matt Men t-shirt, so I got her a Matt Men t-shirt. I'm hoping that it arrives because they'll stab me. Those girls, they get stabby in there. If I don't bring it, they'll stab me and bury my body somewhere.
Don't give them any attitude because then you'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah. So I saw them last week, but they were very excited about the meetup. If you guys are in New York, if you guys are planning to come to New York, come say hi to us. We're going to be there, I believe, at 5 o'clock. Might get there a little early, but come at 5. It'll be a lot of fun. A lot of the regulars will be there. It'll be awesome. So, anything new? Any updates this week from last week?
On
the event. Anything coming out? Any?
Oh, for that, you mean the Microsoft event?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like. Let's see. How do I say this? It's an education event. It looks like I don't know if they're calling it this, but the cloud book kind of thing where Microsoft and or its partners will be selling. Probably its partners will be selling. Yeah. Windows 10 based PCs running this version of Windows are happening. It was funny. I was talking to Mary Jo and she was saying, you can almost do like a keyword bingo thing. Like it makes sense that they will talk about the Intune based management stuff that they have. It makes sense that they will talk about OneNote because OneNote is such a great educational tool. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's anything major. There was a leak of some of like the minimum specs for the devices that would run this system, but actually they're slightly higher than the specs for normal Windows 10. So
okay, so what do you know what it was?
Yeah. What was the thing that stood out was the storage. For example, on a Windows 10 tablet, you can have as little as 16 gigs of storage. For these devices, the minimum is 32.
Interesting.
Not a big deal. I mean,
but is it that? I mean, Windows 10 came out a year and a half ago, right? About a year and a half.
Windows
10?
Year
and a half?
Yes. Yeah,
so
almost 2 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So when those minimum specs were put out, we're going back 2 years.
Well, you know what? The funny thing about Windows 10 is, and it was funny about Windows 8 as well, is that since Windows Vista shipped, the 3 subsequent major versions of Windows, the specifications, like the minimum specs, have all either gone down or stayed the same.
Yeah.
So they've basically been continuing some work they began for Windows Vista to componentize the operating system so that they could have a lightweight version of it on there for low-end systems. They don't have Starter Edition anymore, but for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, this kind of system that only runs store apps, you can have a lower end system because what people are going to be doing is one of two things. They're going to be running store apps, obviously, which are better for the battery, better for performance. And they're going to be running the web browser, which is the same thing. And so if you're accessing web apps through Microsoft Edge, you're going to be able to take advantage of the battery life improvements you get from that and also the performance improvements. And so you really don't necessarily need a really powerful system.
Sorry, my started echoing here. Yeah, it's interesting, but what do you think? Who do you think the partners are going to be for these? So initially, obviously, if what I envision, it's going to be at Surface device, it's going to be a Microsoft device, and then the partners are going to come in, right?
I given the market and given this particular event, I'm not 100% sure we are going to see a Surface device, right? These are going to be lower end devices. I don't know that it makes sense for Microsoft to sell a Surface
lower end
device.
device.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, that kind of changes the entire initiative because they were premium devices, right? The Surface line was a premium device. That's why you
Yeah,
have that
yeah,
the Surface Book and the Surface Pro and
right.
the Studio. I mean, the Surface Studio. Who is that targeting? It's not targeting, a college kid going
Right.
back to school. It's
Well, it is if he's going to Harvard.
I guess
You know,
so, or some
um,
acclaimed, graphic design school. But
well, you know what though? I mean, that kind of thinking falls into that decision-making thing I just wrote about today, which is, you could spend $300 for a laptop, I guess, and send a kid off to college, but that $300 laptop's not going to last 4 years, right? So,
yeah,
a modern Surface device or a more premium laptop or whatever probably would last the 4 years. Now, that doesn't mean you have to spend $2,800, but surely there's a happy medium there somewhere. I mean, 800 bucks, 900 bucks, whatever.
I know we don't have numbers for Surface sales, but is the Surface Book 3, Surface Pro 3, the highest selling Surface
Surface, Surface
overall?
Pro is the best selling device.
Yeah, but if
Surface
you were to
Pro
break
4,
that,
break it down.
yeah, would the 3 be? Because I have to tell you, I
no,
have been seeing since I started this job,
Yeah.
I've been seeing more and more people using Surface 3s than anything else.
Well, how do you know they're not Surface Pro 4s?
I ask them. I've asked every single person that
All right, so let me
I've seen.
hold on one second.
And they're
Let me
from
tell
different
you.
companies. I feel like there was like a major corporate ordering behind the
Well, yeah,
Surface
three was definitely the start of the big success for this product line, right? So, as of March, let me see. I know I have this data here.
I like that you just have that data.
um,
It's like the data I have for wrestling. I could tell you George
Yeah,
Hackenschmidt's
yeah.
wrestling record,
It's got to
The
know where to
early
look.
20th century.
No, actually, Surface Pro 4 is in use more than Surface Pro 3, but they're pretty close.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
34.4% for Surface Pro 4. These are percentages of overall Surface devices.
Overall
on the
Surface
world.
device.
Surface Pro 3 is 27.4.
Oh, okay. So I mean, it's pretty
Yeah,
close.
they're close.
Interesting.
Yeah. Surface Book is only 7.5.
I don't know. With the Surface line, if we were to say it's like compared to the Mac line, right? If we do, because I guess that's a fair comparison. Premium devices, and it's associated to synonymous brands. So let's compare it. Very different devices, but let's for shits and giggles, right? Let's do this.
Okay.
The Surface line is, I believe, in my opinion, more of a premium line than the Mac line because
I don't know.
less product. I'll tell you, this is my how I see it. Right? They have the MacBook Pro competitor, right? Which is
Yeah.
the Surface Book. Then they have a higher end version of like an iMac, essentially a very expensive iMac, if we were to compare the two devices. And then they have, the Surface, the Surface Pro, which is I guess
An iPad Pro.
An iPad Pro.
Yeah, except that it runs the same.
Except that it runs
software.
stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
But they don't have the lower end Mac, like the lower end MacBook to that lineup. They don't have the MacBook Air to that Surface lineup. They don't have the Mac Mini, for example, to that lineup. And I don't know if it's a good idea for them to venture in that. Listen, I would love for Microsoft to make like a Mac Mini type puck device. I know you could get it from HP and everybody, but you know what? I would love to have I like the Surface brand, so I would like to buy it. I would probably buy it because we got to change some of these machines here. I don't know if it's necessary for them to do it, and I don't even know if they want to upset their partners, and two, I don't know if they want to even venture into that market of having more devices on. I think the exclusivity of these higher end devices works for Surface to the extent that it does.
Apple is kind of a design forward company, which is kind of a nice way of saying form over function. And so they're drawn to devices like the MacBook, which is super thin and light and almost too thin and light to the point where they only have one port on the thing, and it's kind of silly.
Listen,
but that's Apple.
This thing has. Do you know how frustrating it is with this MacBook Pro that I have no USB on this thing? I mean, I'm going to be honest. It's a beautiful device. It's beautiful, and we spoke about the pros and the flaws. But the thing that I'm constantly doing is taking my phone and trying to plug it in to my laptop, and I can't because I don't always carry the stupid dongle with me.
Well, you don't need a dongle, right? I mean, you could get a cable. No, well, I mean, you could just get a cable, like
a cable to connect another cable to connect another table. We're playing Human Centipede with our, adapters
Well,
at this point.
look, again, I always feel a little awkward when you make me defend Apple, and this is not,
I know, and you
not
do
much
defend
of a
it.
defense. But if, like, I guess what I'm saying is, if someone who spends that much money on a laptop like that is not carting around other stuff, right? This is their laptop. So if you use an iPhone, you're going to get a cable that has USB-C on one side and Lightning on the other. You're just
That's
going to
not
get a
true.
cable. No,
They don't sell it with that though.
No,
if
it
you have an
doesn't come
iPhone.
with it.
I
Of
know,
course
I
not.
know.
I'm just saying you're going to get that cable. In other
You're
words,
going to get the
you
cable.
spent thousands of dollars on the laptop. What are you
You're
going
going
to
to spend another $20 for a
Like,
cable. I know.
You know, yeah.
Listen, I bought all the cables, Paul. I bought it, but you know what? I don't. I'll give an example. This laptop I take to work and I bring it back, right? I have my
Yeah.
bag and I keep all the dongles on that thing. I have one that's for an SD card, and I have like one that's like a 5-in-1. I have the one that set my laptop on fire still for God knows what reason. I haven't thrown that one out, but I keep it in my bag. I don't carry my bag everywhere with me. But I take my laptop with me everywhere. That's where it. And listen, it's an adjustment. This is the problem. This is the problem that we could all get past, right? We get used to it. But at this point, I'm not used to it.
But let me give you just 2 data points that suggest I'd be okay with it. I do have an iPhone 7. iPhone 7 doesn't have a headphone jack, so I'm worried about the dongle thing, right? I use Bose noise canceling headsets when I fly. I attach the Lightning adapter to that thing to make sure I always have it, but I have a separate one that I keep in my bag, like you're saying, like you have a little thing in your bag for these little dongle things, because you never know, I might forget the headphones and have to use other headphones or something. It's a little thing. It was probably $10 or less. Keep it in the bag. But here's the other thing. I have spent a lot of time evaluating laptops over the years, but this year in particular. And one of the things that's happening in the PC space is that the PCs are going down the same design path that Apple is, but they're not going to the extreme that Apple is. So in other words, if you get a high-end HP or Dell or ThinkPad laptop, and they're beautiful devices, all of them, completely different from each other, different materials, different builds, whatever it is. The one thing they all have in common is that they do use USB-C and Thunderbolt, but they also offer at least one, and often more than one, full-size USB port. And of course, as a reviewer, I look at that and I say that there you go, that's smart. Nice middle ground. You've done the right thing for customers, blah, 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 whatever. But you know what? The question I need to be asking myself, right, is do I ever actually need that USB port? And here's how I look at it. I can unplug this. Let me just show this to you. Because I travel with this. If I'm coming to New York for the day, and I'm going to go to Rattle and Hum and hang out with you and Mary Jo, and I'm going to be there for some kind of a meeting, so I'm going to have my laptop. I don't care if I have dongles or anything for this computer.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up. I'm going to type notes. I'm going to post my stories. It does not matter.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be staying overnight anywhere or staying somewhere for a week, like I'll be doing next week when I go on some work trip, or staying for a couple of weeks like I do when I do in a home swap, you just bring something like this. Right. And so this is like USB-C on one end. It plugs into one of those ports.
And
it's
you're
on the computer.
fine. Yeah.
You're fine.
Which that's what I have. I have one of those.
Yes. And it has a little Ethernet thing as well.
Yeah.
So this is like an all-in-one, does everything. Do I remember to carry this with me every single time I have one of those laptops? No, I don't. I actually don't actually need it because I have a USB port. But
lucky
but I
you.
would still I know. No, but it doesn't, but it never matters.
I know. Listen,
to be clear,
90% of the time you don't. I know 90% of the time this is not really an issue,
right?
but it's that small percentage when you're, I'm doing this and I'm like, crap. Okay, I got to go find the adapter now and get up. I mean, it's an inconvenience more than anything else. Listen, know what is not that much of an inconvenience?
I agree with you, though. But I do agree with you. By the way, I just want to say, all they had to do was put one USB port in this thing. All they had to do was put a micro SD card slot in the side of it, and they can say whatever they want about room and blah. There was plenty of room and space for this. There was plenty.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for what they've done. I agree with.
So here's the other thing. Using this iPhone.
What you've said is so deflating to me.
I know. So here's the iPhone, and here's the wonderful headphone without it, because it doesn't have a headphone jack. I have to tell you, I do not mind this at all, because the battery life is so exquisite on this device, on this iPhone that I have. I really don't have to walk around with one of these, power bricks anymore. The thing is, it gets me through an entire day. I mean, I haven't charged it since yesterday, and I have 60% left. I can never dream about doing that with my phone right now. The Samsung. So it's way better at battery management. I have to tell you, they've done a great job with that, and it's a giant battery too, so it
Let's see
helps.
if I can find this.
But I have no problem with the headphone jack being this. So that's where.
By the way, okay, for whatever it's worth, neither have I. And granted, I am anal retentive enough that I've set myself up so that it will never happen. But I've never had the experience where you get on the plane and you're like, oh crap, I can't even listen to music. I mean, I'm not a complete idiot.
I did experience the problem where, because I carry multiple devices, I wanted to listen to something on my Android and not my iPhone because I was doing something else on my iPhone, and I have this weird block where I gotta use one device for my MP3s, so I store everything only on one. And I went to go plug this in, and I'm like, oh crap, where does this go? You can't plug this in on an Android phone.
You do have those moments where you're looking at the thing and you're like,
it just stops. Exactly. Your brain just totally stops.
Yeah, because you're literally, it's like a reset almost. So by the way, I let me read a couple points to you it was actually from BGR, which I don't really like, but I think it's Zach Epstein or whatever. He wrote that after using the Galaxy S8 for 2 weeks, he still thinks the iPhone 7 Plus is better. And he listed 5 reasons why he thought. And it's interesting. I mean, better is kind of
is it that there's more than one reason I can never ditch my iPhone 7 for a Galaxy S8? Is that the one?
No. Actually, that might be his follow-up article. I think he came
5 main reasons I can never switch to the... Okay.
I agree with 4 of them, to be honest. The first one was software. And I mentioned this earlier. iOS is still better and smoother than Android. I agree with that. Apps are important. I would argue those are the two same thing, but iOS apps are better and smoother than Android apps. Okay, fine. I mean, I see what he's saying, like the operating system versus the apps. Okay, fine. Performance is important. The iPhone 7 Plus still outperforms the Galaxy S8. That one I actually don't agree with.
I don't know how much I agree with that either.
Yeah, and the only little asterisks I would put next to that is Android has never not betrayed me in this regard, and I don't have this phone for long enough to say. So the issue isn't whether this thing runs well today. The issue is whether it runs well in 1 month or 6 months or whatever. And so we'll have to wait and see how that works out. And honestly, the people who spend a lot of money on this phone will probably not be telling us the truth about that. So I don't know. But my experience so far is that the performance is excellent. Battery life is important, and there's still nothing out there that can touch the iPhone 7 Plus. It's funny. I've actually seen a lot of reviews of the Samsung Galaxy S8 that have complained about the battery life and S8 Plus. I actually think the battery life on this thing is pretty damn good. But that said, I actually, the iPhone 7 Plus especially is better. But the last one's an interesting one, and this is something I might never have thought of on my own, and I think he makes a really good point, which is that customer care is important. And there isn't a consumer electronics company in the world that can even approach Apple in this key area. And the reason that's true is because you can go to an Apple store and get this thing fixed right now.
Yeah.
If you drop your phone right now and crack the screen, you could walk over to the store and have it back to you maybe today.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's why you buy an Apple device. I am saying that's why everyone is in that store. Fine.
For the cracked iPhone screens. Yes, exactly.
There's no doubt about it. But you know what? That store still exists, and it's important.
Paul,
and actually,
I told you we went through this. My MacBook Pro died.
Yeah. And
there was some weird power issue, which I don't know what it was attributed to, but it died, and I had it for 3 days. And you know what? I didn't not have to call Best Buy, and I walked over to an Apple store because there's like 5,000 of them in New York. I handed the thing within 30 minutes. They gave me a brand new one, no questions asked. And you know what? That's why they get that consumer. Like, we made a joke out of it, but that's why they get that A+ in consumer report.
It is there, exactly. And and it's not. I don't mean to be unfair to Samsung. I mean, in fact, given how much they've copied Apple, whatever. But OnePlus 3T, if you have to get that device repaired. OnePlus doesn't have repair centers, right? You send it back to like an Acer repair center or something. They have a contract with some other company. You can't bring it somewhere locally unless you happen to live in the middle of nowhere in Texas. This is probably Motorola. Any phone maker you decide to name, you can't bring it somewhere to get it fixed. I mean, even Microsoft, when they were making phones, it's not like they had a system like Apple does. You couldn't bring probably a Lumia anything into that store and have them replace the screen while you waited. You can say what you will about Apple. I do all the time. That literally is a major advantage to normal people.
Listen, and they got their game together. And last time I brought this up, people said, "Well, you could take it to Best Buy. Best Buy will do." Best Buy does not have the training that, listen. I hope I'm wrong, right? But the last time I had an issue,
Yep.
I hope I'm wrong, but I know someone's going to tell me, "No, we train our employees really well," but they don't know every device that walks in there. The job of an Apple store, if an employee is to know about every single device that is in there, because they only have 10 devices, that's it. That's what they know. Best Buy in and out every week. There's a new device coming out, and it's very hard for the employees to keep up, and it's hard for them to give a crap about it. It's a very different mentality at the Apple store, and they've done a great job at brainwashing. I mean reconditioning. I mean training their employees about the product.
Right.
I worked at the Gap, and when I was younger, that was like my first real job. And I have to tell you, very similar mentality when it comes to training and customer service. I mean, that may not be the case anymore with the company because retail is falling apart. But when I was there, you cared about your job and you cared about the products that you had. They did a very good job at creating this mentality where, you have to know the product line and you have to know this. Apple did that, and they've been very successful.
Yeah, it's really funny because the Apple Store grew up out of the notion that retailers were not giving them the shelf space, and they were having to compete with mass market merchandising, which they weren't really that into. And so they basically had to do this because it was the only way their products were ever going to get a fair shake out in the real world, where people could look at them and hold them, and it wouldn't be in one of those terrible Best Buy displays that had been torched by a gang the night before. And it's funny that they turned that liability into a serious strength, especially because they put these stores everywhere. Like you said, in New York City, you can't walk around a corner without bumping into one. They're like Starbucks. I mean, we even have one in Dedham,
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
they're all making money.
Yeah. I mean, it's turned into an incredible asset for this company. And again, to be fair, it's an incredible asset for anyone who buys into those devices, because I mean, it's a phone. You don't want to lose it for 2 weeks while some idiot is not repairing it in Texas. You want to go into the store where you live, which by the way could be in Texas, of course, and get it fixed and walk out with it.
Yeah. Well, here's the other side of this, though. Here's the other side.
By the way, I'm sorry. I just want to I'm not making fun of Texas. The Acer repair center I'm referring to is in the middle of nowhere in Texas. I didn't mean to disparage Texas.
Yes.
Or Texans.
The problem here, though, with the Apple Store is if I know your hatred towards Texans. I mean, that's been known for years now.
I know it's ugly. I live in Massachusetts. It's a natural.
That's how it works. It's all natural there.
Boston.
My mother lived in Texas for a while, so I really dislike Texas.
Okay. Well,
no, I don't dislike Texas. When here's the other issue with Apple, though. If you have a device that's like 2-3 years old and it's out of warranty, you're shit out of luck, because you're going to spend. There is no repairing. There's no concept of repairing. There's replacing. So they replace parts. They don't repair parts. So a simple issue requires the logic board to be changed, and that's going to cost you a minimum of $700. So the value, and I guess that's a good way to encourage people to buy a new one, because for $200, $300 more, you get a brand new laptop. So that's part of the problem. Here in New York, luckily, we have great unofficial repair centers that do a lot of these repairs, and it's a lifesaver because, for example, I took my MacBook Pro after I destroyed it with Thanksgiving Day gravy, poured it all over it. I took it to this guy, and he was able to repair it for $200.
Yeah.
So, 200 versus 700. Yeah, of course I'll do that because it's a brand new laptop. So anyway,
sure.
Guys, we are out of time, but we are going to do a quick bonus show because we have some time today. We're trying something here, so Paul doesn't have to rush out of here. So we're going to do our bonus show. If you want to watch it live, stay tuned. We're going to continue this. If you're listening to the podcast, go to patreon.com/Thurrott. patreon.com/whatthetech. You could watch it on Patreon. Actually, Punter Joe says, can they fix your camera? That is actually a great idea. Maybe I should take it to them. Maybe I should take my camera to them. That's actually a great idea. Thank you for that recommendation. You can follow me on Twitter at AngelZan. You can follow Paul at Thurrott, Thurrott.com. Join Thurrott Premium. You get all these great articles there. Plus, you get to see Paul and Brad every single day do First Ring Daily. Tomorrow, live show, First Ring Daily, 1 p.m. East on Thurrott.com. You can go there. We'll see you all next time. Take care.